I remember the exact moment my father's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. The clinking of silverware against porcelain plates went silent. My mother's hand found the edge of the table, gripping it like she needed something solid to hold on to. My sister's eyes widened, and I watched her throat move as she swallowed hard. The chandelier above us cast the same warm light it always had over our Sunday dinners, but everything felt different now. The words I'd just spoken hung in the air between us, and I couldn't take them back. I didn't want to take them back. For 32 years, I'd sat at this same table, in this same dining room, pretending to be someone I wasn't. And in the span of maybe 10 seconds, I just told them the truth about who I really was. The way they looked at me in that moment, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. But what I didn't know then, what I couldn't have predicted, was that the silence that followed would become the most important silence of my entire life. I grew up in a traditional family in a small city in the Midwest. My father worked in construction management, my mother taught elementary school, and my younger sister Emma was the golden child who did everything right. I was the older brother, the one who was supposed to set the example. We went to church every Sunday morning, had family dinners every Sunday evening, and never talked about anything that made anyone uncomfortable. That was just how it was. I played baseball in high school, went to state college, got a degree in business administration, and came back home to work for a regional insurance company. I dated girls throughout my 20s. I had a girlfriend named Jennifer for almost 3 years. Everyone thought we'd get married. My mother already had ideas about the wedding. Jennifer was sweet and I cared about her, but something always felt off. I told myself it was just cold feet, that all men felt this way before commitment. When we broke up, I blamed it on career differences, on timing, on everything except the real reason. The real reason was something I couldn't even admit to myself back then. I was 28 when I moved into my own apartment downtown. It was a one-bedroom place in an old converted warehouse building, exposed brick walls and high ceilings. My parents thought I should save money and stay with them, but I needed space. I needed to figure out who I was without everyone watching. I told them it was closer to work, which was partly true. The building had a small gym in the basement, and that's where I met Marcus. He was the building manager, responsible for maintenance and tenant issues. He was maybe 10 years older than me, with graying hair at his temples and these deep-set brown eyes that seemed to notice everything. He had rough hands from years of fixing things, and a scar above his left eyebrow that I later learned came from a construction accident when he was younger. He wasn't the kind of man you'd call classically handsome, but there was something about the way he carried himself, this quiet confidence, that made you pay attention when he walked into a room. The first time we really talked was when my kitchen sink started leaking at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night. I called the emergency maintenance number, and he showed up 20 minutes later in jeans and a faded blue work shirt, carrying a toolbox that looked older than I was. He fixed the leak in about 15 minutes, but we ended up talking for an hour. He asked about my work, about why I'd moved to the building, and he actually listened when I answered. Not the polite nodding that most people do, but really listened. He told me he'd been in the Marines for 8 years before getting into building management, that he'd lived in 3 different countries, that he'd been married once, but it hadn't worked out. There was something easy about talking to him, like I didn't have to perform or pretend. When he left that night, I realized I'd been smiling more in that hour than I had in weeks. After that, we started running into each other more often. He'd be checking the boiler room when I came back from work. I'd see him in the gym early in the morning when I couldn't sleep. We'd have coffee sometimes in the building's small courtyard, sitting on the old metal chairs that had been there since the building was converted. He told me about growing up in South Carolina, about his father who'd been a carpenter, about learning to fix things with his hands because that's what men in his family did. I told him about my family, about the insurance company, about feeling like I was supposed to want things I didn't actually want. He never pushed, never asked questions that felt invasive, but somehow I found myself telling him things I'd never told anyone. The conversations were never about anything profound, just 2 people talking about life, but they mattered to me in a way I couldn't quite name. There were small moments that should have told me what was happening, but I kept explaining them away. The way I'd find excuses to stop by his office in the basement, just to ask about building issues that didn't really need asking about. The way I'd feel disappointed on days when I didn't see him. The way I'd catch myself noticing details about him. The way his shirt fit across his shoulders, the way he'd run his hand through his hair when he was thinking about something. I told myself it was just friendship, that I admired him, that it was normal to want to spend time with someone you got along with. But there were nights when I'd lie awake thinking about him, and I'd feel something in my chest that I couldn't rationalize away. It scared me. I'd been raised to believe that men didn't feel this way about other men, that it was wrong, that it was something shameful that happened to other people, but never to someone like me. I started comparing what I felt when I was with Marcus to what I'd felt with Jennifer, with the other women I'd dated. With them, I'd always felt like I was following a script, doing what I was supposed to do, feeling what I was supposed to feel. With Marcus, everything felt more real, more present. When he laughed at something I said, I felt it in my whole body. When he touched my shoulder in passing, I became very aware of that exact spot for hours afterward. I tried to convince myself that I was just lonely, that I was projecting something onto a friendship because I didn't have enough connections in my life. But the truth kept pushing against the walls I'd built around it, and those walls were starting to crack. The moment everything changed happened on a Thursday evening in late September. I'd had a terrible day at work, lost a major client because of a mistake I'd made in their policy documents, and my boss had made it very clear that I was on thin ice. I came home feeling like a failure, like I couldn't do anything right. I was sitting in the courtyard, just staring at nothing, when Marcus came out and sat down next to me. He didn't ask what was wrong. He just sat there, and after a while he said, "Bad day." I nodded, and then, without really meaning to, I started talking. I told him about work, about feeling like I was constantly disappointing everyone, about not knowing what I was doing with my life. He listened, and when I finally stopped talking, he said something I'll never forget. He said, "You know what I learned in the Marines? The bravest thing you can do is stop pretending to be what everyone else needs you to be and start being who you actually are." We sat there in silence for a long time after that. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the courtyard. I could hear traffic from the street, someone's television playing through an open window, the ordinary sounds of evening in the city. But sitting there next to him, I felt something shift inside me. It was like he'd given me permission to acknowledge something I'd been hiding from myself for years. I turned to look at him, and he was already looking at me. His expression was gentle, understanding, and I realized in that moment that he knew. He'd probably known for a while. My hands were shaking. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but no words came out. He reached over and put his hand over mine, just for a second, and that simple gesture broke something open in me. I felt tears start to form, and I looked away, embarrassed, but he didn't move. He just stayed there, solid and present, while I tried to pull myself together. I don't know who moved first. Maybe it was both of us at the same time. But suddenly the space between us was gone, and his hand was on the side of my face, and I was leaning into that touch like I'd been waiting my whole life for it. He said my name, quietly, like a question, and I nodded because I couldn't speak. When he kissed me, it was gentle, careful, like he was afraid I might break. And maybe I was breaking, but in a way that felt necessary, like something that had been wound too tight finally releasing. I kissed him back, and everything I'd been trying not to feel came flooding through me. It wasn't like kissing the women I dated. It wasn't performative or obligatory. It was real and terrifying and exactly right. When we finally pulled apart, I was shaking, and he kept his forehead pressed against mine, his hand still on my face, and he said, "It's okay. Whatever you're feeling, it's okay." That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through everything. I thought about my family, about what they'd say, about what they'd think. I thought about my father, who'd never been comfortable with anything that challenged his view of how the world should work. I thought about my mother, who'd spent my whole childhood teaching me about sin and salvation. I thought about Emma, who'd always looked up to me, who thought I had everything figured out. I thought about my co-workers, my friends from college, everyone who knew me as one thing, and would now have to reconcile that with something completely different. I felt guilt, sharp and acidic in my stomach. I felt fear, cold and paralyzing, but underneath all of that I felt something else. Relief, like I'd been holding my breath for 32 years and had finally exhaled. The next few weeks were a strange kind of torture. Marcus and I started spending more time together, but I was terrified that someone would see us, would figure it out, would tell my family before I was ready. We'd have dinner in his apartment, door closed, curtains drawn, like we were doing something criminal. He was patient with me, never pushing, never demanding that I come out or make any decisions before I was ready. But I could see it wearing on him too, the secrecy, the hiding. He'd lived openly as a gay man for over a decade, and here he was, back in the closet because of me. One night, he said, "I can't tell you what to do or when to do it, but I can tell you that hiding who you are will eat you alive eventually. I know because I did it for years, and it nearly destroyed me." His words stayed with me, echoing in my head during the day at work, during sleepless nights, during Sunday dinners with my family, where I sat there pretending everything was normal. I started noticing things I'd never paid attention to before. The way my father would make casual comments about gay people, nothing overtly hateful but dismissive, like they were fundamentally different from us, from him. The way my mother would talk about the sanctity of traditional marriage, about God's plan for families. The way Emma would use gay as an insult without even thinking about it. The way all of us had been taught to think about it. I'd participated in all of this, had laughed at jokes I shouldn't have laughed at, had stayed silent when I should have spoken up, had been complicit in creating an environment where someone like me couldn't exist. The guilt of that realization was almost worse than the fear of coming out. I'd been so busy hiding from myself that I'd helped build the very walls that were now trapping me. I started seeing a therapist. I didn't tell anyone, not even Marcus at first. I found someone online who specialized in LGBTQ issues, a woman named Dr. Chen, who had an office across town where I was sure I wouldn't run into anyone I knew. In our first session, I could barely get the words out. I sat there for 10 minutes just trying to say, "I think I'm gay," like those 4 words would somehow make it more real, more permanent. When I finally said it, she just nodded and said, "Okay, tell me about that." And something about her calm acceptance made it possible for me to start talking. Over the next several weeks, we worked through everything. My childhood, my relationships, my fears, my guilt. She helped me understand that sexuality isn't something you choose or something that happens to you. It's something you discover about yourself, something that was always there waiting to be acknowledged. It was Dr. Chen who suggested I think about coming out to my family. Not as something I had to do immediately, but as something to work toward. She said, "Living authentically is important for your mental health, but you also need to be prepared for whatever their reaction might be. Some families surprise you in wonderful ways. Some families need time, and some families unfortunately choose their beliefs over their children." That scared me more than anything. The possibility that my family might reject me, might decide that their idea of who I should be was more important than who I actually was. But she also said something that stuck with me. She said, "You can't control how they react. You can only control whether you give yourself the chance to be known for who you really are." I decided to tell them at Sunday dinner. It felt right somehow, to do it in the place where we'd always gathered as a family, where we'd celebrated birthdays and holidays and all the ordinary moments of our lives together. I told Marcus what I was planning, and he offered to come with me, to be there for support. I almost said yes, but I knew that would make it harder for my family, would make it feel like I was choosing him over them. This was something I needed to do alone. The week leading up to it was the longest week of my life. I practiced what I'd say, wrote it down, rewrote it, threw it away, and started over. I imagined every possible reaction, played out every scenario in my head. By the time Sunday came, I felt sick with anxiety. Dinner started normally. My mother had made pot roast, the same meal she'd been making for Sunday dinners since I was a kid. My father talked about a project at work, some commercial building they were renovating downtown. Emma talked about her new job at the marketing firm, about her boyfriend Tyler, who was probably going to propose soon. I sat there pushing food around my plate, barely tasting anything, my heart pounding so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. My mother asked if I was feeling okay, and I said I was fine, just tired from work. The lie tasted bitter in my mouth. We'd always been a family that avoided difficult conversations, that kept things pleasant and surface level, and here I was about to shatter that comfortable illusion. Dessert was apple pie, my father's favorite. My mother cut slices and served them with vanilla ice cream, and everyone started eating. I watched them, memorizing this moment, this last dinner where they still saw me as the person they thought I was. My hands were shaking so badly I had to put my fork down. I took a breath, and then another. And then I said, "I need to tell you all something." My voice sounded strange to my own ears, too loud in the quiet dining room. Everyone looked up. My mother smiled, probably expecting me to announce a promotion at work or a new girlfriend. My father raised his eyebrows, waiting. Emma stopped eating, her fork suspended in midair, and I said, "I'm gay. I've known for a while now, but I needed time to understand it myself before I could tell you. I'm seeing someone. His name is Marcus, and I'm happy. But I needed you to know the truth about who I am." The silence that followed felt endless. I watched my father's fork stop halfway to his mouth, watched the realization spread across his face. My mother's hand found the edge of the table, her knuckles going white as she gripped it. Emma's eyes went wide, and she looked from me to our parents and back again, like she was waiting for someone to say something, anything. The chandelier above us cast the same warm light, the same shadows on the wall, but everything felt different. I'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. My father slowly put his fork down. His face had gone red, the way it did when he was angry but trying to control it. My mother's eyes were filling with tears, and I couldn't tell if they were tears of sadness or shock or something else. Emma just stared at me like I was a stranger. My father was the first to speak. His voice was tight, controlled. "Is this some kind of joke?" I shook my head. "No, Dad. It's not a joke. This is who I am. This is who I've always been." He pushed his chair back from the table, the legs scraping against the hardwood floor. "Always been? You dated Jennifer for 3 years. You're telling me that was all a lie?" I felt something defensive rise in me, but I tried to keep my voice steady. I wasn't lying. I was trying to be what everyone expected me to be. But I can't do that anymore. I can't keep pretending. My mother made a small sound, almost like a whimper. She said, "How could you do this to us? How could you choose this?" And there it was, the word that hurt more than anything else. Choose. Like I decided to be gay just to hurt them, just to make their lives difficult. I said, "I didn't choose this, Mom. I didn't choose to be gay any more than you chose to be straight. This is just who I am." Emma finally spoke, her voice small and uncertain. "But you never said anything. You never gave any sign." I looked at her, my little sister who I'd protected and looked out for our whole lives, and I said, "I gave plenty of signs. I just hid them really well because I was terrified of this exact moment." My father stood up, his chair nearly tipping over behind him. "I can't listen to this. I can't sit here and listen to you talk about this like it's normal, like it's something we should just accept." My mother reached for his arm, but he pulled away. He looked at me, and his expression was something I'd never seen before. Disappointment, anger, and something that looked almost like grief. He said, "I don't know who you are anymore," and walked out of the room. A minute later, I heard the front door slam. My mother was crying now, quiet tears running down her face. She said, "I need to pray about this. I need to talk to Pastor Williams. There has to be a way to fix this." And that word, fix, cut deeper than anything else. Like I was broken, like I was something that needed to be repaired. I said, "Mom, there's nothing to fix. I'm not broken. I'm just finally being honest about who I am." She shook her head, wiping at her tears with her napkin. "The Bible is very clear about this. You know what it says. You were raised to know right from wrong." I'd expected this, had prepared for it, but hearing her say it still felt like a punch to the chest. I said, "I've read the same Bible you have, and I've also read about love and acceptance and not judging others. I'm still your son. I'm still the same person I was an hour ago. The only thing that's changed is that now you know the truth." Emma hadn't said anything else. She was just sitting there, staring at her plate, and I couldn't read her expression. I said, "Emma?" She looked up at me, and her eyes were wet. "I don't know what to say. I need time to process this. I need to think." I nodded. At least she was being honest. At least she wasn't pretending everything was fine or attacking me. My mother stood up, gathering plates with shaking hands, even though no one had finished eating. She said, "I think you should go. I think we all need some time." I stood up, my legs unsteady. I'd known this might happen, but knowing it and experiencing it were two different things. I said, "I love you all. That hasn't changed. I hope you can remember that." My mother didn't respond. She just kept gathering plates, moving mechanically around the table. Emma still wouldn't look at me. I drove back to my apartment in a daze. I don't remember the drive, don't remember parking or walking up the stairs. I just remember standing in my living room, alone, and feeling like the floor had dropped out from under me. I called Marcus. He answered on the second ring, and I said, "I told them." He said, "I'm coming over," and hung up. He was there 15 minutes later. I let him in, and he took one look at my face and pulled me into his arms. I didn't cry. I just stood there, letting him hold me, feeling the solid warmth of him, and trying to process what had just happened. He didn't ask for details, didn't push me to talk. He just stayed with me, and eventually we sat on the couch, and I told him everything, every word, every expression, every moment of that terrible dinner. He listened, and when I finished, he said, "I'm sorry. I know how much you were hoping they'd understand." I said, "I knew they might not. I prepared myself for that. But knowing it intellectually and feeling it are completely different things." He nodded. "They might come around. Sometimes people need time to work through their own fears and prejudices. But you did the right thing. You told them the truth. You gave them the chance to know the real you. What they do with that is up to them." I wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that my family would eventually accept me. But I couldn't shake the look on my father's face, the way my mother had said she needed to fix me. Those moments kept replaying in my head, and each time they hurt just as much. The next few weeks were the hardest of my life. My father didn't call. My mother sent a few text messages, asking if I'd talked to Pastor Williams yet, if I'd considered therapy to help me overcome this. I didn't respond. I couldn't engage with the idea that I needed to be cured or saved from who I was. Emma called once, late at night. She said, "I'm trying to understand. I really am. But it's hard. Everything I thought I knew about you feels like it was a lie." I said, "It wasn't a lie. I was just hiding part of myself because I was afraid. But I'm still your brother. I'm still the same person who taught you to ride a bike and helped you with your math homework and was there for you when your first boyfriend broke your heart." She was quiet for a long time, and then she said, "I need more time," and hung up. Work became my escape. I threw myself into my job, staying late, taking on extra projects, anything to keep my mind occupied. My coworkers noticed something was different, but no one asked. I wasn't ready to come out at work yet, wasn't ready to face more rejection or judgment. Marcus was patient with me, but I could tell it bothered him, the way I was still compartmentalizing my life. One night he said, "You can't live in two different worlds forever. Eventually, you have to choose which one is real." I knew he was right, but I wasn't ready yet. I'd just lost my family. I couldn't risk losing my job too. 2 months after that Sunday dinner, Emma called again. She said, "Can we meet? I want to talk." We met at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory. She looked tired, older somehow, like the last 2 months had aged her. We ordered coffee and sat down, and for a few minutes neither of us said anything. Finally she said, "I've been doing a lot of thinking, and a lot of reading, about sexuality, about coming out, about what it means to be gay, and I realized that I've been selfish. I've been so focused on how this affects me, on how it changes my idea of who you are, that I forgot to think about what you've been going through, how hard it must have been to hide this for so long. How scared you must have been to tell us." I felt tears start to form and I blinked them back. She continued, "I'm sorry I didn't react better. I'm sorry I made it about me instead of about you. You're my brother and I love you, and I should have said that immediately instead of making you feel like you'd done something wrong." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Thank you. You don't know how much I needed to hear that." She squeezed my hand. "I can't promise that Mom and Dad will come around. Dad's pretty set in his ways, and Mom's struggling with the religious aspect. But I'm here. I'm on your side. And I'd like to meet Marcus, if that's okay with you." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Having Emma back, having at least one member of my family accept me, felt like being able to breathe again after drowning. 3 months after I came out at work. I didn't make a big announcement. I just stopped hiding. I put a picture of Marcus and me on my desk. When coworkers asked about my weekend, I talked about what Marcus and I had done instead of being vague or changing the subject. Some people were surprised, some people didn't care, and a few people were clearly uncomfortable, but tried to hide it. My boss called me into his office one day, and I thought I was about to be fired. Instead, he said, "I want you to know that this company has a non-discrimination policy, and I support you completely. If anyone gives you any trouble, you come directly to me." I was so surprised I almost cried. The acceptance I'd been terrified I'd never find was coming from unexpected places. My mother called 6 months after that Sunday dinner. Her voice was strained, formal. She said, "Your father and I have been talking. We want you to come to dinner next Sunday." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to refuse, wanted to protect myself from more hurt. But part of me still hoped, still wanted my family back. I said, "Will you be able to accept who I am?" There was a long pause. Then she said, "We're trying. That's all I can promise right now. We're trying." I said I'd come, and when I hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at my phone, not sure if I'd made the right decision. That Sunday, I drove to my parents' house alone. Marcus offered to come, but I needed to do this by myself. When I walked in, everything looked the same. Same furniture, same pictures on the walls, same smell of my mother's cooking, but it felt different. My father was in the living room. He stood up when I came in, and we looked at each other across the room. He looked older, more tired. He said, "Thank you for coming." I nodded. My mother came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She hugged me, briefly, stiffly, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to anymore. Emma was already there, and she gave me a real hug, squeezing tight, and whispered, "It's going to be okay." Dinner was awkward. We made small talk about work, about the weather, about everything except the elephant in the room. Finally, my father put down his fork and said, "I've been talking to someone, a counselor at the church, not Pastor Williams, someone different, someone who specializes in families dealing with this kind of situation." I waited, not sure where this was going. He continued, "She helped me understand some things, that this isn't something you chose, that you're still my son, that I have a choice to make about whether I want to have a relationship with you or not." His voice cracked a little on that last part. "And I choose you. I don't understand this. I probably never will. It goes against everything I was taught, everything I believe, but you're my son, and I love you, and that has to be more important than my discomfort." I felt something break open in my chest, something that had been clenched tight for months. My mother was crying, but this time they were different tears. She said, "We've been praying, not for you to change, but for us to have open hearts, to see you the way God sees you, with love and compassion. It's hard. It's so hard to let go of what we thought your life would be. But we want to try. We want to know this part of you. We want to meet Marcus if you're willing to bring him." I couldn't speak. I just nodded, tears running down my face. Emma reached over and squeezed my hand. My father stood up and came around the table. He pulled me into a hug, and I hugged him back, and we both cried. He said, "I'm sorry it took me so long. I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to hide." I said, "I'm sorry too, for not trusting you enough to tell you sooner." That wasn't the end of the journey. My parents still struggled sometimes. There were moments when my mother would say something that revealed she still thought of my sexuality as something unfortunate, something to be overcome. There were family gatherings where I could feel my father's discomfort when Marcus and I showed affection. But they were trying, and that meant everything. Emma became one of my biggest supporters, educating herself, calling out homophobic comments, making sure Marcus was included in family events. She stood up for me in ways I never expected, and our relationship became stronger than it had ever been. A year after I came out, Marcus and I moved in together. My parents came to see our new apartment, brought us a housewarming gift, stayed for dinner. It was still a little awkward, still a work in progress, but it was progress. My mother asked Marcus about his work, his family, his interests. My father talked to him about fixing things, about building maintenance, finding common ground in the practical. Watching them make an effort, seeing them try to build a relationship with the man I loved, meant more to me than I could express. I think about that Sunday dinner a lot, about the moment I finally told them the truth. The way they looked at me did change forever, but not in the way I'd feared. It changed, Because they finally saw me, really saw me, for who I actually was instead of who they'd assumed I was. It changed because I gave them the chance to know the real me, and they chose to take that chance. It wasn't easy, it wasn't immediate, but it was real. I'm 34 now, living authentically for the first time in my life. Marcus and I are talking about getting married. My sister is planning to be my best woman. My parents are cautiously supportive, still working through their own feelings, but showing up and trying. That's all any of us can do, really. Show up and try. The truth is, I spent so many years hiding, so many years pretending to be someone I wasn't, that I'd forgotten what it felt like to just exist as myself. Coming out wasn't just about telling my family I was gay. It was about claiming my right to be known, to be seen, to take up space in the world as my authentic self. Maybe you know this feeling too. Maybe you've sat at a table with people you love, holding a truth inside you that feels too big to contain. Maybe you've been terrified of the moment when everything changes, when you can't take the words back, when you have to face whatever comes next. If this story touched you, leave a like. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories like mine. And if you want, tell me in the comments where you're listening from, or just write your own truth. You're not alone. I promise you, you're not alone. The moment you stop hiding is the moment you start living. And that's worth every difficult conversation, every awkward dinner, every moment of fear. My truth set me free. Yours can too.